night I blew my the radiator hose, the guys are bringing me something like, if we hurry, I can be there by 7 before the thing starts.
Okay,
Then
I
when-
told Jeff to be here.
I just get here a little early just in case.
You guys, is
We
this
didn't really-
hazing?
Joe started to, and we're like, no, that's not right.
It's better be a few minutes early than a few minutes late. That I have learned.
Absolutely.
A special form of hazing, for sure.
Those things my wife said never change from college.
Yeah.
Your job will be different. That one thing.
All right, we're going to call this meeting to order slowly. First time is roll call.
Okay, Alderman Bray,
Here.
Alderman Knox,
Here.
Alderman Mills,
Here.
Alderman Cleaver, Alderman Skinner,
Here.
Alderman Soul.
Here.
There is a quorum.
Next time, an invocation led by Jason Williams from Valley Community Church, followed by a pledge of allegiance from Alderman Soul.
Lord, we thank you for this opportunity today, God. We just pray your blessing upon everything that goes on tonight. God, I pray over all of these who lead our community, God, the responsibility, the challenges that come with that, God. I pray for each one of these as well as their families, God. Many times the challenges are great, and the willingness to serve, the willingness to give of their time, God. I just pray, Lord, that you would bless them, God, abundantly for their willingness to participate and be a part of helping this community continue to grow and be what is a blessing to so many. And so, Lord, we just thank you for that. Pray your blessing on everything that goes on tonight. God, we give you praise for it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, you're not the only one.
Was it me? Weeks in a row?
Right.
Or, I had it last meeting, so I assumed it wasn't me.
Next item is the approval of the agenda.
No changes, Mayor.
All right. Next item be proclamations. Seeing none, move on to public comment. We ask that anyone who wishes to address the board come forward to the podium and microphone, and please make sure you've signed in with your name and address for the record. Do we have anyone who wishes to address the board this evening? Seeing none, move on to consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
I have Mr. Alderman Skinner to approve the consent agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Bray. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right. Seeing no previous business. Seeing no new business. He's walking in right now. You're lucky. No. Next up will be a presentation from our auditor, Trout Beeman and Company, PC, and he's walking in the door right now. There he is. All right. I stole as much as I could. We got no.
We're well aware it was Stephen.
Yeah.
Meeting ran a little over. Got here as quick as I could.
That's all right.
How are you all tonight?
All right.
Good. Okay. I'm Butch Beeman, managing partner with Trout Beeman and Company, and our firm has performed the audit on the city's financial statements for the year ended December 31, 2023. You have that monster document, and most of you have read it cover to cover. I hope not. I'm going to speak to that a little bit later. But what I would steer you to is, are we okay? Can you hear me all right? Okay, thank you. What I would steer you to is page 1, our independent auditor's report. And in particular, on the first page, on the paragraph that starts with, says opinions, second paragraph. And this is the crux of what our firm is engaged to do, is to render an opinion on the city's financial statements. And in our opinion, the accompanying financial statements present fairly, in all material respects, the respective financial position of the governmental activities, business type activities, water, sewer, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of the city of Green Valley, Missouri as of December 31, 2023, excuse me, and the respective changes in financial position and where applicable, cash flows, statement of cash flows, excuse me, for the year then ended with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. That paragraph says that what this is, that your financial statements, as a result of doing our audit work, that we are able to render an opinion such as this, present fairly. That's the highest level of reporting that an auditor can issue on an entity's financial statements. That's what you all, in your fiduciary capacity, representing the citizens of this city, would hope, would expect that you would receive. You would hope that your team would doing the accounting and the accounting for information, recording transactions and so on, that would allow you to get this type of opinion. So after doing our testing, confirmations, vouching, inquiries, reading minutes, yes, we opine that your financial statements are presented fairly. This is important, certainly to you, as I just said, in your fiduciary capacity, but it's also important to the companies that underwrite your bonds and buy your bonds. If you had something less than this report, you could take your bonds to market, but you'd pay a higher interest rate. So this is critical, and so we're pleased that you were able to achieve that. Page 4 and 5, and oh, I'm sorry, this is informal. I mean, yell at me, hey, Butch. I mean, come on. You have any questions at all? I've got 116 pages, so I've got a lot to go. Page 4 and 5 are the statement of net position as well as the statement of activities. I want to highlight just a couple of things, and they're good highlights. The city of Green Valley had a strong year financially, in our opinion, as a result of doing our audit. On page 4, the very first line, unrestricted cash, just a tad over 25 million. That's about 1.8 million more than a year ago. And that's the cash. Is it just what it says? It's not restricted in terms of how you use it, as opposed to restricted cash that could be, and is set aside for payment of principal and interest on bonded debt. Could be customer deposits in your utility fund, because you're going to owe that back to them at some point, or use it to pay their final bill, that type of thing. So about $1.8 million more than a year ago. Now the next line down, restricted cash, and this is not a negative, but it's down by $9 million over last year. Well, you might say, oh my gosh, our cash is down by $9 million. Well, yeah, but you were sitting on the bond proceeds that was to be used to construct the police building. And so you had the cash last year and the debt, and now this year you spent about $10.2 million, well, constructing and finishing up the police building. So certainly to be expected, nothing untoward there, completely within line with your budgets and your capital asset plan. Now on page 5, now you have to kind of turn that one sideways. But where I would steer you is the third line from the bottom. Underneath governmental activities, you can see that the change in net position was just shy of $4 million. Very strong performance in terms of revenue in excess of expenditures. In the business type activities, again, water and sewer, that number is 353,000. I mean, there just simply isn't the volume of activity going on there as there is in the general fund. But what I want to highlight is a couple of things. Again, both are increases, and that isn't always the case. Last year, if you were to look back, the general fund, in the general fund column, it was a large decrease. But again, there were reasons for that. So those are very positive. I also want to highlight that in the line, 4 or 5 up, investment earnings, those are approximately $400,000 or $500,000 more than a year ago, even though you had less cash. And so you're able to take advantage, your staff was able to take advantage of the rates out there in the marketplace with respect to its investments, primarily CDs, but they've increased substantially in the last year, as you probably well know. I would highlight that many, if not most, of your general revenues, your taxes, whether it's sales tax, franchise tax, property taxes, all up over last year. You got a strong stream of revenue. And I had it later in my notes, but it seems to be an appropriate time to mention it. And I know you guys are all aware of it, but, just as an outsider looking in, as we see these numbers of 23 and think ahead, what should we expect to see in 24? Your assessed valuation went up by 66 million. I understand there are some lawsuits with respect to Jackson County and the assessment process, but be that as it may, your assessed valuation went up a lot. The community's growing, you're doing commercial development, and it's paying off for the city. Now, page 19 through 52, it's always been interesting to me that it takes more pages for the footnotes to explain what the financial information in front of it has to do or means. And so, but I again, jump in at any time. I would steer you to page 29, footnote number 2. Excuse me. Sorry. A little bit of hay fever going on. But among other things, when we're in here doing an audit, and as I said, we're looking at transactions, we're vouching, we're tracing them back to invoices, we're sending confirmations to banks and UMB or whoever the trustee of the bonds may be. We send letters out to your attorneys looking for unrecorded liabilities, lawsuits that may merit an impact on the financial statements, and we're also testing certain compliance with state statutes. So for instance, on page 29, footnote number 2, one of the things we do when we send confirmations to your banks that hold the city's money, we're asking them to confirm exactly what they have pledged as collateral and what the fair market value is. And that's important for 2 reasons. Number 1, the state statutes dictate what the city is allowed to invest in. Number 2, so that would be a test 1. Is it appropriate? Is it in compliance with the law? And then number 2, is it sufficient to cover assets? So that heaven forbid, one of the financial institutions that you hold money in would have a setback. The monies of the city of Green Valley would be covered. You were 100% covered, and it was 100% appropriate assets. So that's important. Just kind of one of the things that it's not just our firm. I mean, that's one of the things that auditors do. The other thing that we do, when you borrow money and you work with your underwriter and the bond attorney, you agree to certain covenants. You're gonna maintain insurance on the property. You're going to set appropriate rates. If I'm talking about something in the water and sewer realm, you would agree to set certain rates to generate revenue sufficient to make your principal and interest payments. Same thing in the general fund, general activities, except those are general obligation bonds, and so you pay those back with property taxes. And so you don't have a lot of control over the assessed valuation, but based on that assessed valuation and your debt service requirements, then you set your levy accordingly. And you complied with all of those covenants, including ones that require you to set aside certain funds each month. Sometimes it's mostly monthly, but sometimes it can be semi-annually or annually, to make sure that just in case there's money set aside to help out if something were to go sideways. And you complied with all those covenants. So what I would, share with you, well, I want to talk about, there's a smaller document, communication with those charged with governance, which is you all. You've been elected to govern the city. And there's about 3 or 4 things in there that really, maybe 2 or 3, that really are the meat of that 3 or 4 page report. It's not bound, it's very skinny. And one, we are required as your auditors to tell you if there are any disagreements with management or staff during the course of the audit. There were no disagreements at all. We're required to tell you if there are any difficulties in terms of performing the audit. What that would mean is perhaps staff wasn't ready. We always do planning and then we send up a list of items that we're gonna need, want them to have prepared for us so that when we hit the field, we can kind of get after it. And Stephen and his team always do a very good job. They're prepared, they're organized, they're responsive to our request, and that really helps in terms of the performance of the audit. So no issues there in terms of just difficulties in performing the audit. The other thing that we're required to tell you is that if we find any evidence of, in layman's terms, opinion shopping, we're required to tell you all, because ultimately it all comes to rest here. And what that means is, let's say Stephen calls and says, hey, Butch, I have an opportunity here to, do such and such, or I'd like to do the transaction this way. He shares the facts and we say, no, generally accepted accounting principles wouldn't facilitate that, wouldn't allow that. Here's how that needs to go. Well, maybe that's not what he wanted to hear. So he calls another firm, hoping to get maybe the answer that he'd like to get, and that's why it's called opinion shopping. And if we become aware of any such circumstances, we have to tell you. And we saw no evidence that that type of thing occurred. Stephen calls periodically as needed during the course of the year to visit with me and or our audit manager that's responsible for the field work, Brandon, and we provide answers, and it's a good dialogue, and he's responsive, and away we go. So no issues there. So you've got a lot of stuff there, and here's kind of how I would summarize it. The city finished the year in a very sound financial position. While cash is down in total, debt was reduced by a little over $2 million. You also were able to spend $12 million on capital assets, the bulk of which was the police building. There's solid growth in your revenue streams, as I mentioned earlier, if not all, almost all, whether it's franchise tax, sales tax, property tax, they're all increasing, which is, everything's going your way, so to speak. Phenomenal increase in assessed valuation. So all things looking the right way. I think the city does an excellent, I believe the city does an excellent job with respect to its finances. And in any event, that really is the essence of my presentation. But again, any questions, comments?
Anyone have any questions?
Okay, well, Mary, if I could, real quick. I would encourage you all, and I'm sure it's published on your website, as well as members in the audience, go to the section for financial information and look at the, the 12/31/23 audit and go to the it's just after the 3 or 4 cover pages. Go to management's discussion and analysis, MD&A, because this is a lot of, I went to college for a lot of this stuff. Generally, it's up to accounting principles and continuing education to do this. But look at the MD&A, because that's written, not by us, we can't write it. That's written by Stephen and his team. And it will confirm and flow right along with many of the things I've said. It's in a much, much more, if I can say, layman's term, it's great information. I would encourage the citizens to check that out if they haven't already. But again, Mayor, any questions? Certainly I want to respond to those, but we absolutely appreciate the opportunity to serve as your auditor.
All right, anyone have any final questions? All right, that's good. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Have a good evening.
You too.
Thank you.
Okay, see no additional presentations, no public hearings. We'll move on to resolutions. First resolution is R 24-44. It's a resolution by the Board of Aldermen of the City of Grand Valley, Missouri, adopting the 2025-2029 Grand Valley Capital Improvements Plan.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve resolution R 24-44.
Okay, I have a motion from Alderman Mills to approve resolution R 24-44. Do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Skinner. Any discussion?
Mayor, members of the board, we have City Engineer Dick Tuttle here to give a little presentation on the CIP.
Mayor, members of the board, this is the proposed capital improvement program for 2025 through 2029. Purpose is to provide a flexible planning tool for future capital projects and major purchases, identify needed projects, identify possible funding sources, match project timing to the funding availability. So the plan includes parks and recreation projects, street projects, water and sewer projects, stormwater projects, and vehicle and equipment replacement. What you have here is the entire schedule, and what you will see is that the largest portion of this has unidentified funds or is unfunded. This is a list of all the projects that are in the plan, and I don't have slides on all the projects because many of them are beyond the planning period or are unfunded and near the end of the planning period. So the first project we want to talk about is the Blue Branch Trail from Eagles Parkway to Snybar Boulevard. This is a continuation of the project we're working on Eagles Parkway and the Blue Branch Trail. Proposal you see would cross the creek and then follow the creek up to Snybar Boulevard. It's part of the Metro Green, which makes it a prime candidate for grant funding in the future. But crossing the street is a difficult thing because you cross the street with a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit at grade or go under the bridge, which I'm not sure there's room to do that. So it's a difficult thing to calculate what you're going to need to do there. This is Project 7C. This is one we've applied for a grant for, and it would be built with Project 7F, which is the next one I'm going to show you. And it basically takes the sidewalk on Cross Creek Drive and widens it from 4 feet to 8 feet, and then it would run from the circle down to the trailhead parking lot. 7F is the first project for Snybar Boulevard, and it would run from the project we're working on Buckner-Tarsney Road and run to the circle and connect to the project I just showed you. Proposal is $52,500 in 2026 for design, $429,813 in 2027 for construction, and we've applied for a grant for both those projects as a single project. South Buckner-Tarsney Trail is one we've already got a grant approved for. We had funds budgeted in 2023 for the design. The design is complete. We've budgeted funds this year for easement acquisition. That is now complete. And we have $440,500 planned for next year for both construction and construction engineering. And we need to get bid before August of next year. Project ties the Blue Branch Trail down to Snybar Boulevard and Nelson Drive. Eagles Parkway Trail is another project that we got a grant for. It's under design right now. $517,000 is planned for construction in 2025, and that is partially funded by a grant. And the proposal would be to build this with project PW 34, which is the intersection of Eagles Parkway and the high school. Project PR 11 is enlarging the parking lot at Monkey Mountain. And it's budgeted, planned to be budgeted in 2028 for $222,180 for both design and construction. Project here. Well, I must have added that project afterwards. But it is Project PR 12, and it's to replace the 3 shelters out at Armstrong Park for $350,000 next year.
So the 222,000 was for the shelters or for the parking lot?
This is for the parking lot at Monkey Mountain, but the shelters at Armstrong Park, this was done before that project was added, so I apologize for that, but it is in your book. And that's $350,000 for the 3 shelters, and that's proposed for next year. PW3 is the downtown Phase 2 project. It's rebuilding Front Street from Kirby to Main Street. The design is updated. The complete design is updated. Easement acquisition is ongoing. We've acquired 40 of the 50 easements we need for the project already. $3,252,330 is needed for construction next year. That's the current estimate. The next phase of the downtown project would be to reconstruct Harris Street, parts of Broadway, Gregg Street, and Young Street with curb and gutter, drainage, and new water mains. The plan is to start design in 2027, land acquisition in 2028, and construction in 2029. And as Mr. Knox pointed out, there's a section of Gregg Street there that does not go through at the time. So that would be a design consideration, whether or not to take that section of Gregg Street through at that time. And that's north of. So construct a new water tank at the location of our current water tank in the north end of town. $400,000 is budgeted for design. We'll set up a meeting to go over the design on that on Wednesday. $4.45 million for construction starting in 2024. And the project is needed to make sure we have sufficient water supply in the north part of town for the continuing development. 2025 pavement maintenance program, $720,000 in 2025, which is about what we've been budgeting for the past few years. And that would be an edge mill and overlay of Pamela Boulevard, Meadow Court, Bay Tree Drive, Dogwood Drive, Scenic Lane, Lakeview Drive, Valley Woods Drive, Primrose Court, Pecan Drive, Theme Street, Rust Road, Rust Court, the alley west of Bell, Tire Road, Pavilion Drive, Nelson Drive, and Woodbury Place. Project also includes patching and micro sealing of Woodbury, East Buckner-Tarsney Road, and the city portions of Minner Road. The county, they sealed their sections, but there's 2 sections on Minner Road that didn't get sealed. Those belong to the city, so it would take care of those 2 sections. Also, the majority of Nelson Drive would also receive a micro seal. There's only a small portion that hadn't been repaved in the past.
Will there come a time like when we can recommend another street to be added to that? It's been missed multiple times.
there
Yep.
would be.
Yeah, so Dick, for a second, go over how we got the kind of the process to do this with IMS and the pavement condition index, and then how we're planning to do that
We had
again.
a study done in 2020, and they went out and they scanned with lasers every street. They determined that the PCI, pavement condition index of every street in the city. And based on that position, PCI, we have been determining which roads, the higher PCIs, we get done for paving. Make sure we get the worst streets first. So the worst streets in each section of town are the ones that are getting set up right now.
Right. No, I'm just, one street in particular is Hillside Court. It's right off Sinai Bar on the south end of town. I had a resident come to me complaining about it, and I went and looked at his street, and it's pretty rough. It's one of the worst I've seen.
Thought I had that set up for 2026. We're going to do a study again next year. There's another project coming up that I'll talk to you about. We're proposing to redo that study. The information they give us, I get a spreadsheet, and it ages the roads. However, some roads age faster than the spreadsheet show it. Other roads don't age as fast. So I have to go back out and rescan the streets, look at the streets, drive them all, make a list of streets we're proposing, drive them all, see if they are still needed at that time. And then we take into account any calls we get from the public as far as streets, and some get added in, some get taken out based on those calls and based on our review of those streets. So in 2026, again, $720,000. The majority of this would be in the patch and seal area. Ephraim Drive, Elmwood, Gregg, Whitney, Michael, Jackie, Indian Creek Drive, and R.D. Mize Road is a small section of R.D. Mize Road near the police station that has been skipped on previous jobs, and so it would get done. And those would be milled and paved. The patch and seal are Cedar Lane, Cedar Court, Hilltop Lane, Highview Drive, Short Street, Duncan Road, east of Buckner Tarsney Road, Hillsborough Drive, and Dillingham from Crestwood Drive to Argo. And yes, those areas are city streets, even though they are outside the city for the most part. The road itself is in the city, and so there are streets. So Eagles Parkway was a project that originally was proposed to run from Buckner Tarsney Road to Cross Creek Drive. We tried twice to get a grant for that, and twice we were the highest rated project that did not get the grant. And so we backed off and decided to just look at the intersection. And so the intersection, the preliminary design is nearly complete. Right-of-way acquisition would be planned for next year, and final design would be in 2026, and we are applying for a grant again, but the construction is planned for 2027, with approximately $1.5 million. But we applied for the entire section for a grant again. Maybe the third time's the charm, and we'll get the grant. So that's what we're hoping. So we're in the process of applying for that grant again. So 2027, Edge Mill and Overlay, Sweet Gum Court, Scenic Drive, Scenic Lane, Europa Drive, Minos Drive, Orion Drive, Helen Court, Armstrong Road, Lindsay Lane, Sandy Lane, Court, Meadow Glen, Mill Creek Court, Cottonwood Court, Albatross Drive, Hillside Court. There you go. I knew I had it in there somewhere. Lois Lane, Christie Lane, Honey Locust Court, and Box Elder Court, Harvest Circle, and Woodland Circle. And then the patch and seal, Willow Drive, Crestwood Drive, August Lane, Deer Creek Road, Coldwater Creek Drive, Clear Creek Road, Wolf Creek Drive, Green Drive, and Scenic Drive. This is the project I was talking about to update the scanning, budget $80,500 next year to redo this. It's been 5 years since we've done it. So we need to do it again, see how well the aging on the spreadsheet that I have is working, see how close it's matching my estimate of what those streets are now. So to get that done. So anything forward from 2026 on could change as a result of this study. Those 2026 and 2027 based upon the current spreadsheet that I have and the condition that I've seen drive around in the field. And that's why I've only got 3 years in the program, because after we do this, the 5-year program would be reestablished. The Northeast Sewer Interceptor, Phase 1. This is to serve an area basically north of Duncan Road, surrounding Sweeney. It's northeast, basically, of Duncan and Buckner Tarsney. It's an area that I've received numerous phone calls for possible development. The only thing holding back development is providing sewer to the area, so we're looking at sewer in the area. Right now, we've got preliminary planning and plans going on, and the idea would be that once we've got it and we know what the cost is going to be, to approach the landowners to share in the cost of construction. Similar to what was done with the North Interceptors that allowed Rosewood Hills and Woodbury to develop. Similar program.
Do any of the developers pitch in to help pay for this?
No, not at this point.
Yeah, so the way that we did when he mentioned the northeast or the northeast sewer interceptor for Rosewood and for Woodbury, so essentially the city went in, put the line in, and we established it's a per acre fee for development. So when a developer comes in and wants to develop, if it's a 10-acre lot, then it's 10 times whatever that fee was, and so that's how we would recoup some of the money. So in essence, it is when it's developed.
Okay, thank you.
That project initially 2 developers put up funds up front to help pay for it, and I'm still charging the $1,000 an acre today for any land that develops in that area. So the Duncan Road box culvert replacement, when we updated our master plan, it was the one box culvert that under a 10-year storm, the street would overflow. That's the only one where it would overflow, and that under a 100-year storm, it would be over a foot over the top of the road, which you're supposed to be less than a foot over the top of the road. It's the standard. So basic design of the box would be double the size of the box that's there now. Plan is to budget $190,000 in 2025, and then follow easement acquisition in 2026 and construction in 2027.
When we're doing something like that, do we factor in the potential for like a sidewalk running through there, or like a
Yes.
trail, so it's wide enough to
Box
accommodate
would be made wider than the current box so that you could make sure the road was wide enough. Actually, part of the box would reconstruct the road in that section so that the road matches the road further west, and it would make for a trail and sidewalk on the north.
Thank you.
Sidewalk on the north, trail on the south. This is the intersection of Duncan and Buckner Tarsney. Right now, it's going through some preliminary planning and preliminary design, and the money was budgeted this year. Plan is to do some right-of-way acquisition next year, budget for that, and then the grant application is currently being submitted for construction, which the next construction round from these grant applications is 2027. Why all these roads that are currently, we're applying for grants, are shown in 2027. And we have a vehicle replacement program for capital development, community development. Replace the 2012 Ford Escape in 2026 and the 2015 Taurus in 2027 with a 4x4. So it can be used for field inspections, get off-road, which the car is not very good at. For the police department, in 2026, replace a 2021 Ford Interceptor utility vehicle. In 2027, replace the animal control unit, which is a 2015 Silverado with an animal carriage, and 2 2021 Interceptor utility units. 2028, replace a 2018 Chevrolet Impala, and 3 2022 2022, interceptor utility units, and in 2029, replace the 2020 Traverse. Parks and Recreation Department, next year, replace the 2010 Bobcat track loader, replace in 2026, replace a 2018 riding mower. 2027, replace a 2017 3500 dump truck. In 2028, replace the 2016 Ford F-250, and in 2029, replace the 2019 riding mower. Public Works, this is where the big trucks are. Replace a 2015 Chevy pickup and a 2014 International dump truck in 2025. Replace another 2015 Chevy pickup, 2015 International 7400 dump truck, and a 2005 CAFCO crack sealer in 2026. Replace the 2015 1500 pickup and a 2015 Chevrolet Silverado in 2027. Replace a 2016 Chevrolet pickup, 2021 Bobcat 24-inch planer. That's to do similar to what the contractor's doing now when he mills the road. And 2022 8-foot snow plow, 2019 SnowX spreader, 2007 Bomag roller, and a 2019 Ford F-450 in 2028. 2014 HD Industries Pro Patch, and a 2014 Hyundai Excavator in 2029. And questions you all might have, or if you want to talk about some of the other projects that I did not include slides, I've got them here. I can skip up to them.
The only other thing I was gonna add, Dick, is just to kind of jog memories on this thing, but the idea of this plan, besides being able to kind of look further down the road as far as a budgeting perspective, is Dick talked about going out for grants and things like that. Well, if it's not in a plan that's been approved by the board, the likelihood of getting those grants is even less. So it's important that we have these things or shown in a plan that's adopted, so he's better able to go out there and fight for some of those grant dollars, him and Mr. Trozen. So that's just kind of the overall side of it. Obviously, we still have to go through the budget process every year and hope that everything fits in. Hopefully we're adding things in on a year-to-year basis, but it's just trying to give that overlook so we don't come to 2 years from now and then kind of have this, we didn't realize all this stuff was going to be replaced. So like vehicles go through the vehicle and equipment replacement program. Computers aren't really in here, but we have a computer equipment replacement program. And then we talked about the roads, having that plan where it's not just kind of making it up as we go every year. It's a regimented plan as we move forward. So those are all things that we've done a lot better job of here in the last few years. So just helps us plan a little better.
The grant application specifically asks, is it included in any other plans? So I list all of our plans: comprehensive plan, the 5-year capital improvement plan, the budget. I list all those plans that it's also included in because that helps with the application.
One thing I would also add is that Dick made a similar presentation to the Planning and Zoning Commission at their June meeting. They heard the presentation, reviewed the plan, and recommend approval to the Board of Aldermen as well.
I just have one question. I think it was like PR 7E. I could have missed that, but it was the extension of the bike trail. You said you were going to move a sidewalk. It was on Cross Creek Drive. You're going to move a sidewalk from 4 foot to 8 foot.
Yes.
It's not my ward, but I mean, those are residential houses.
It would be on the street side of the sidewalk.
Okay. Perfect. I mean, that's a lot of
Don't-
front yard.
don't- Yeah, I was going to say, have no intention of getting further into people's yards.
Okay.
Right now, the sidewalk is 1 foot inside the right-of-way. The extra 4 feet would be next to that.
Okay.
So it would put it a foot or two from the curb.
Thanks.
I know this really isn't part of what we talked about here, but I know the sidewalks that we're doing next year on Buckner Tarzany and Eagles Parkway. What construction time are we looking at on those? Do you have any idea?
They should be basically over the summer months.
Okay. I get asked about those a lot,
both-
so.
Yeah, especially the one on Buckner Tarzany. That one is further along than Eagles Parkway, so I suspect that it'll be my goal is to try to get it bid, either very end of this year or beginning of next year, get it started right away. Unfortunately, it's asphalt, so
Yeah.
during the wintertime, the asphalt plants aren't open, but they can get all their grading and that kind of work done ahead of time before the asphalt plant's open.
We have any additional questions? All right.
Okay, thank you.
So if anyone has any additional questions or discussion, all in favor, right? We're good. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right. Next up is resolution R 24-45. It's a resolution by the Board of Aldermen of the City of Grand Valley, Missouri, appointing Jeff Craney to the Grand Valley Board of Zoning Adjustments for a 5-year term.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we accept resolution R 24-45.
Motion by Alderman Bray to approve resolution R 24-45. Do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Skinner. Any discussion?
Is somebody dropping off the board?
No. Yeah, somebody moved. And they're needing, you have a scheduled meeting with the 16th mark, I think, for a variance request. Yeah, someone who was previously on the board has moved and no longer in town, so I'm replacing that individual. Any questions or discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right. Next up then be ordinances.
This will be the second reading of Bill Number B 24-12. This is an ordinance approving the dedication of certain real property in Grain Valley, Missouri for road right-of-way and trail easement, and authorizing the city administrator to execute all documents required to effectuate said transaction.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we accept the second reading of Bill B 24-12, bring it back as ordinance 2453.
Okay. I motion Alderman Knox to approve Bill B 24-12 for its second reading, make an ordinance 2453. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please be roll call.
Alderman Bray,
Yes.
Alderman Knox,
Yes.
Alderman Mills,
Yes.
Alderman Skinner,
Yes.
Alderman Sol.
Yes.
That's it for ordinances. Next up to the city attorney's reports.
Just want to remind everybody that we have the Missouri Municipal Attorney Association Conference, the annual conference down at the lake, starting this Friday. So all of us will be heading down there in packs on Friday. It will affect our response time. If you do have questions or concerns, we can still be reached. It might just be a little delay as we get to a place that has internet access. Once we're on site, we should be able to respond in normal time, though.
Next up, city administrator and staff reports.
We just had one thing. So through the Downtown Grain Valley Inc., which, you know, the city was a funder to get that funding source to get that started. We have been nominated for a creative joint ventures award that they do every year. So we'll find out if the city and Downtown Grain Valley get that, but that will be in August at their yearly state conference. So just good to at least get that far and just recognized for that. And that is it on staff
All right.
comments.
Next up then, Board of Alderman reports and comments. Alderman Knox.
Yes, I have 3 of them tonight, believe it or not. First one's for Mr. Davies. I was asked today, couldn't answer the lady, when we put in the playground equipment, did we put in a swing for wheelchairs?
Yeah, so, we did. There's actually an ADA-specific accessible swing for those with disabilities. And then we've also got a tandem swing that 2 people can use. So depending on the ability of the individual, they could use that with a parent. And then we've got, I think, several tot swings and just regular belt swings, as well as a nest swing. And that playground does have ADA surfacing as well, too, so it's accessible
Okay.
from parking lot to playground.
Okay, thank you. Second one, this is for Chief. I was asked by a couple of business owners if we could start enforcing the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit down Main Street. more, you know, more presence, more ticket writing, especially south of the tracks where it becomes a speedway.
Yes, we'll definitely put that on the list. Thank you for bringing it to our attention.
And the last one is the parking on Main Street. I spoke to one of the business owners. He says it does affect his business. I told him I'd bring it up. I've also had a gentleman that I've been contacting me, and I told him what I would like to see is maybe city staff look at putting the 2 parking places back in front of the bank and making Front Street one way from Main to Gregg. By doing that, it takes away the safety issue of trying to pull out onto Main Street off of Front. It affects no businesses and no homes, and it gains us our 2 spots back. So just, I'd kind of like to see staff look at seeing if that's feasible, especially with the Front Street project starting to.
Would that be a traffic study or what would that be?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's probably just as simple as doing that, because when you do that, you're diverting traffic somewhere. And if you're having to make that loop, then you're adding more traffic to Walnut, more than likely to get back onto Main, because that's the only other spot you can get back on there if you do a loop. I mean, obviously, we can look at anything, but I do think there would probably be some other items that would pop up with that we probably are not currently thinking about.
We still have traffic counters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do they tell you the direction the cars are going? So, I mean, we could put those out there just to get an idea of how many cars are, and that may give us a starting point to see how many cars are, you know, utilizing that going. So I guess we'd be looking at going one way, westbound, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So we look make the east, so I guess we kind of need to see how many cars are using that going eastbound, and that may give us a starting point. If we can do that.
That's all I have.
Alderman Skinner?
I'd just like to thank the police department for the extra patrol in the neighborhoods with the neighborhood vehicles and speeding. I started getting the opposite of complaints. You know, I was getting stopped too much. That's great. I think you made your points. We appreciate it. It's great. Thanks. That's all I have.
All right. Alderman Bray?
Nothing this evening.
All right. Alderman Mills?
Well, since I'm technically still on vacation, I want to thank Alderman Knox for taking all the questions for Ward 2. I appreciate that. I'll answer them next week when I'm back.
You're on.
Alderman Soul?
I have nothing.
Okay. Next up was mayor's reports. And I guess chief and officers in attendance that it's just summertime and people like to speed. I don't know. Because I got a few areas also. Is that typical speeding increase in the summer, or am I just imagining things?
More people are out.
More people
on
at
the
home to
roads.
see it.
Kids are out out of school. There's more people
Okay.
present.
Broadway. Between it's gonna be between Main and Kirby, I guess, and I guess that stop sign at that's a 4-way stop at Garden, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I guess they're running that a lot, which I can probably see that.
Watch one run it Friday night during Food Truck Fridays, and if he wasn't going 50, he wasn't going at all.
Yeah.
When Food Truck Friday comes up, Broadway is a racetrack.
Yeah. Broadway, and then the next one I saw today was Ryan Road. I know that's just the wider road, and I just encourage. I think that's just the wider road. People probably. So is that 25 on Ryan or is it 35?
Yeah, I think, is it 35? Yeah,
Is it 35? Okay, so they were talking about wanting speed humps and everything else out there. So I don't know if that's, but I know I know all those streets are tough because there's not good spots to sit. To try to. So I don't.
Yeah, we can definitely.
Let's do what we can do.
We can address it. We can. Sounds like we had our due diligence to the north. We can pull down to the south a little bit.
There we go.
All right, that's all I have. I do believe we have a need for an executive session for legal?
One legal.
Legal. All right, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn the executive session then.
So moved.
President Alderman Knox, I have a second.
Second.
Alderman Skinner, any discussion? All right, seeing none, will be roll call.
Alderman Bray? Knox?
Yes.
Alderman Mills? Alderman Skinner?
Yes.
Alderman Sol?
Well,